All right, so track guides. All track guides, if you load up into the Sports Car Endurance Racing League, come here over to Sessions. Every track guide is based on the Thursday night practice. So you can see here there's two. There's November 6th, which is the Thursday night, November 7th, which is race night, and it's the same for every single track. So you'll be going on the first one is all static conditions. The second one is actually the conditions that we are racing in. So what I did is for the first um, Thursday night practice sessions, you jump in here, view sessions, pick whatever car you want, and then you come down here and you go to test drive. It's all static conditions. So for Daytona, it's going to be set. These are the static conditions, and it's set at the time that roughly the race will start at in real life, in the actual event. So it's the same for every single track. I've tried to set it up for the same conditions as the start of the race for the Friday nights. So just come in here, pick whatever car you want, and do the test drive. One thing to note for the BMW M2 is when you get into the session, when you're about to test, you're going to have to come into the garage. Make sure your setup is loaded, fix setup. I mean, you only have that one option. But the one thing you do have to do is you're going to have to come down here in the BOP power adjustments, and you'll have to bring it down to minus 5%. So every session for the race is already set for minus 5% for the BMW, but when you're doing your test drive, you have to manually set it, unfortunately. So that's just a quick reminder to do that before you do some laps if you want to compare lap times to my track guides. All right, welcome to the track guide for the BMW M2. I did a few laps, progressively got a little bit quicker, but pretty consistently here. So I was doing a 2 minutes point one. I believe there's a little bit of time to be gained, and I'll show you the reasons why. But we'll play this first lap, and then we'll talk about it. And there you go. There's a 2 minute point one. The reason I'm saying you go a little faster is I'm going to jump to the lap before this. We're actually going to go a little bit different here. We're going to talk about the bus stop first, just because I did it way better the previous lap. And then we'll go all the way through the rest of the lap. So coming into the bus stop here, when you'll see the on the actual lap, I'm breaking around the same spot, but I tackled the lap a little bit different. So typically what you're happening is the number two here. You are going to get on the brakes and off the throttle roughly around the 2 mark. You don't really get on the brakes very hard. You're doing maybe 65, 70%. When the 1 starts coming along, just you start turning in, loading up the tires. Something very different this season is this track is very different, the bus stop. Uh, you've got these big ass curbs on the inside here, and then you've got this normal curb here. Problem with the BMW is it does not like this curb or this curb whatsoever. So basically, when you see these curbs, you'll want to put your left tire kind of just touching it, but you don't want to go up it because it upsets the car quite a bit. And you'll see on the actual lap that I did on the exit here that hurt a lot. So I'm coming in here, just trail braking, just slowly touching this first curb, a little bit more aggressive on the first one, and then the rest of them I don't really hit very hard. So I'm just putting my right tires kind of on it, and I want to wash out to a decent amount of the like halfway across the track because I want to try to line this up nicely. So I'm coming on here. I think I'm in fourth gear here. I'm going to hit this curb a little bit. It's going to kind of spin me slightly so that I get a better line coming out of this corner here. So you can see I hit the curb, kind of gets me turned a little bit, and now I'm kind of attacking this curb here, right here, in a straight line. So I want to avoid these big suspension breakers here. I'm just going to kind of lightly just drive over it with a straight steering. You'll see a big difference in how this reacts to how it reacts when I show you the actual lap. So we're going to rewind it. You're going to see here. Here, I'm coming over here. I'm going to use this curb to turn me a little bit. I'll get nice and straight before I hit the steering wheel. And no problem. There was no drama for that lap. So now we're going to fast forward. We're going to go to the actual lap that I set the fastest time. All right, so we're coming into the turn one. You see these dotted, painted white lines, and then there's the green light. With the BMW, I don't like getting heavy into the brakes. You'll notice if you get heavy into the brakes, the front end just kind of washes out. It just understeers. There's no steering involved. It just sucks. So typically what I'm doing is like 50, 60, 65, maybe 70% braking, but that's pretty much it for this car. So you'll see here, there's a white line off the throttle. I get on the brakes, turn out nice and wide. So what I do is I kind of round the corner off. I'm going to come to this one. I'm going to come towards the wall. I'm already preloading the tires because as I turn into this corner here. So I'm loading up the tires, getting that slip angle locked in. And as soon as it's kind of bed in, then you can kind of maintain speed. Whereas if you just turn straight and then turn, your tires are going to be like, oh, what the hell's going on? They don't have time to settle. But if you do a nice arc in like that, they get time to settle, and then you'll actually be able to carry a little bit more speed. So you'll see here, arcing out. Now I'm going to start turning in. I'm really not going above 50% while I'm turning. I'm going to kind of aim towards the outside of the corner a little bit. And then at one point when I get across the seam here, I'm going to start turning in. This, I believe, is in third gear. So apex for this corner, typically just after this arc here. So where the tires are, and then right after this is typically where I like to hit the apex. BMW, you got to be very careful on throttle as well. You can't just slam on the throttle and expect everything to be fine. You really got to feather it in because it just wants to slip out, especially if you're shifting up. If you're shifting up while accelerating and turning, the car just wants to kind of go sideways. So you'll watch here. I'll hit the apex here on throttle, but not full throttle. I'm probably, what, 70% here, maybe 75. Progressively bringing it up. You can see I'm fighting the steering wheel, fighting the drift, and then I'll get full throttle. Be careful with these curbs. Do not put your right tires over the edge of this because it will try to murder you. Same with pretty much the entire track. You never really want to put your right tires over the edge. So you just want to kind of brush them slightly. So right curb, left curb, and now you're coming kind of middle of the track, and then you're going to come immediately to the left. You can see the 3 dotted lines here. I'm using these as brake marker. I'm going to lift off the gas and then brake into it. If you want to settle this car down a little bit more, I do recommend a little bit of lift and coast. That just gives you a little bit more transition period, and it settles the car down quite a bit. You won't lose very much time either, and you'll save a little bit of fuel, which is always nice. So let's slow it down. You can see here, here's the dotted lines. As I'm coming towards the end of it, boom, off the throttle, onto the braking. Kind of, you can see there's a consistent pattern here, is I'm aiming towards the wall, and then I'm going to slowly start arcing it so that I can load up that tire for the slip angle. All the way to the left here. Now I'm going to start turning in again, third gear, trail braking, not very hard. I think my maximum was what, like 60-ish% here? Yeah, about 60, 65%. As I start trailing off the brakes, I start turning in. Very light trail right near the end. And then as I start turning in harder to try to get, what I want to do is I want to put 2 tires just slightly touching like the tip of this yellow curb. You can see here there is some heavy rubber along this white line. It's no longer painted white. This is typically where you'll try to apex. This is a good spot for it, and you will get lightly on the throttle before that, and then slowly just pick it up. So I'm not going full throttle at all until I'm out of it, and you can see now I'm going to start kind of slipping, and I'm starting to counter steer. So just be very wary of how much throttle you're putting in for this one here. This corner here, definitely full throttle once the tires are warmed up, but at the beginning it's not going to be full throttle. Also, it's only full throttle if you turn in at the right spot. So you got to be very careful here. You can see this line kind of goes to the left, and then all of a sudden starts kinking over to the right. So you want to be able to turn in kind of as this track keeps going left. So if you follow this white line that would go straight, I would start turning in left kind of pretty much right at that point. And you want to make sure you get your left tires on that yellow curb, just so that you're able to go. Otherwise, if you turn in too late, you're not going to make the corner. You're going to have to back off the throttle. If you turn in right at the right time with warm tires, you can just keep it full throttle. And you'll see here, here's the mark. I'm turning in. I'm full throttle. And I'm just going to touch these curbing with my left tire. And I won't wash out further than about halfway across the track. So if you've done this right, this is probably what you'll end up doing. If you've turned in too late, you're going to end up over here in the curb and potentially in the grass. This car really, it doesn't have that much grip, so you really got to make sure you turn in at the right time. And then coming up to this corner here, this is pretty easy. There's a big patch of concrete or cement here, or asphalt. Typically, I'll try to get off the throttle around that point and then get on the brakes shortly afterwards. So you can see here, boom, I'm getting off the throttle, onto the brakes. Again, not too hard, 50, 60%. All the way to the left, and then I'm slowly arcing it in, and I'm slowly turning, and then braking, trail braking, slowly coming off, and all of a sudden you see I start turning in more. Here I got on the throttle a little bit too early. You can see I kind of bumped up, and then I got off. So typically I try to apex roughly about, right about there-ish. You can see the arc all of a sudden just kind of arcs more. I'll apex here, and then I'll just watch the throttle and monitor, because this car wants to drift out of this corner really badly. So you're going to have to watch the steering and how much throttle input you put in. You can see here I'm on the curbing. Actually, there's a good spot right here, as you can see where the apex should be. Is you should be apexing as the curb transitions from these like big teeth to these little rumble kind of guys. So this one I messed up a little bit, so there's a little time to gain, but this is a decent one anyway. You can get your 2 right tires on this, and you'll see here I start washing out a little bit. I get on the throttle a little bit, so it kind of keeps me to the right. The rear end kicks out. I'm counter steering. This is because I kind of miss a corner, so I'm just mashing the throttle to get me to rotate a little bit more. So there's definitely some time to gain here as well. But that is a good counter measurement. So if you kind of apex a little bit too early and you're washing out a little bit, sometimes a little extra throttle can get you that rotation you need. You can see the car's just slipping and sliding all over the place here. Big counter steer. And then all the way to the left curb, and off we go. Immediately coming over to the right, you can see the 1, the 2, the 1, and then there's also the asphalt that opens up here. I typically get off the throttle just before that, probably braking just before this spot opens up here. So let's watch closely. Here it's starting to open up, off the throttle, and onto the braking. Again, maybe about 65%, a little higher, maybe 70%. I'll back it up here. I want my 2 right tires on this little rumble strip. These rumbles are pretty safe. It's the big teeth curbs that have a lip on the edge. Those ones are a little bit sketchier with this car. But here you can get your 2 right tires on this curb, open up the corner as much as possible because there's a big long straightaway after it. And then once I get to the end of this kind of rumble strip, I'm going to start turning in, trail braking, kind of comes off. And here I want to be fairly aggressive. Remember I said that little teeth rumble strips you can get pretty aggressive with. I'm going to come straight over it, sometimes even a little over it. And then I'm going to get back on throttle. But you got to be very careful with the throttle. This car will want to just get the rear end out. You can see I'm counter steering, and then just slowly bringing up the throttle. So typically what you can do here is don't get full throttle until you're off this curb. So wait till you're off the curb, and then you kind of have some grip and you kind of feel it out, and then you can get on throttle. It might come all the way out to here. But usually once you're there, you can get on full throttle, and you can kind of stick it on full throttle. Maybe a slight lift as you're kind of transitioning over there, but I would recommend just kind of steering out of it. So counter steering, because it's going to get loose as you kind of get closer to the transition point, and you're going to get all the way up against the wall. So I'm trying to get as much speed out right here. You can see it's kind of oversteering a little bit, but not too bad. But I kept it full throttle all the way up to the wall here. You're going to want to use the banking of Daytona to get some extra speed down the straightaway. So now once I'm up at the banking, I'm coming right down, trying to use that gravity to get me some extra speed all the way down the straightaway. You're going to stick to the yellow line all the way down. If you're passing cars, you're going to pass around the outside. GR86s are slow, so they'll be hugging this line. Coming up to the bus stop, I talked about it before this whole thing started, but you'll see here how getting it wrong might affect a little bit of lap time here, because this one I went in a little bit too deep, which ended up costing me at the end. I ended up on the throttle and I hit that last kind of curb, and it really upset the car. So we'll look at it, how I did it. The previous lap, I kind of braked before the 2 kind of thing. Here, I'm going a little bit deeper, and I'm braking a little bit harder. Once you get past that 1, you can start kind of turning it in. You can see the car is kind of oversteering on entry. Get over the curb. Here, I think this one's fine. And then I get out pretty wide. See, I'm over the seam here, and I'm getting on throttle, but it's kind of the car's understeering here. So I think I waited a little bit too late to kind of turn in, and the car's kind of understeering. I missed these curbs, not too bad, but the problem is where I'm positioned is now I'm positioned kind of for these big curbs, and I try to correct that by turning extra, but the car's kind of understeering, and I had to get out of the throttle here, going over this curb, because I realized I'm going too fast. I'm going to understeer too much. You can see here, it was understeering, and now I'm trying to like heavily correct it, which ends up having my steering wheel turned over the curb, and car just gets very sideways. Luckily, I didn't crash, but it was sketchy. So that's what you want to try to avoid. You want to try to do it like I did at the beginning. So that would have probably got me a 159.8 or something like that. But yeah, it definitely cost me a little bit of time here. So we'll go all the way to the end. And there's your 2 minutes and 0.1. One thing I will mention is I think you guys should watch the track guide for the GR86 and the track guide for the GT4s just to see where their brake markers are. Because as a middle class, you're going to have to be the most reactive towards who you're passing and where you're allowing other people to pass you. Lift and coast is a great strategy for allowing other people to pass you into the braking zones. The problem with the GRE6 is it brakes way later than this car does, and it's way better on the brakes. So the rule is you have to be side by side or have some car overlap with the GR86 in your braking zone, not theirs, in your braking zone. So if we come up to turn 1, your braking zone starts here. So you need to be side by side with the GR86 or have some overlap before you get to this point. The GR86 starts braking roughly about here. So he's braking like almost 200 meters later than you. This is why that rule's in place, because if you just decide to dive bomb, like once he's already committed to his brake, you're just going to end up in that car because he's so much faster. What I did recommend in the GR86 video is GR86 are recommended to stay on the racing line. It's your job to get past them in a safe manner, but they are instructed to stay on their racing line. And then GT4s, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to have to be instructed to pass you. Uh, that gets a little bit trickier, especially when there's multi-class. But at this point, most of you guys race with us. You guys kind of know what to expect. But yeah, here's the. We'll do a fire chase for the whole lap, and then we'll leave it at that. So let's go back to the 201. All right, so we'll do the fire chase view, and then we will be done with this video. Then it goes all the way to the line, staying to the inside here, and we're good. All right, well, thanks for watching the track guide for the BMW M2.